Hi, I'm Kim Polishuk.
And I'm Jen Giffen from
Shoots and Giff, the podcast. A part of the Education Podcast Network.
Just like the show you're listening to right now.
Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others.
Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode number 150 of the House of EdTech podcast, I'm going to increase your happiness. We're going to talk about some fun tool that was going to help your students study for assessments. I've got a just give it a try story, and we're going to boost creativity using education technology. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Hey, welcome back to another episode. This is the House of EdTech. I'm so glad you're here. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. Got a lot in store for you here today as we are really in the midst of is it February already? Gosh, it just seems like 2020 just started. But, here we are. And, really, again, this is episode 150. So the House of EdTech is going strong. 2014, that seems like a lifetime ago when I look back over the last 6 years of, my life and this podcast and all the things that I've talked about, all the people that I've talked to. Gosh. But, if this is your first time listening, hey, the good news is you only have to catch up on 149 episodes of the podcast. And also, this is probably the best episode yet. Although, let me just say, that episode 149, which is obviously the last episode prior to this one, where I talked all about TikTok in education, very, very well received. I even posted my first TikTok video. So if you connect with me on TikTok, my username is CJNessie, Nesi. You could see my first TikTok, and I was actually inspired by the college class that I teach. Well, one of the 3 college classes I teach where I am integrating TikTok into what I'm doing in that class. So I posted my first TikTok, shout me out on Twitter if you go and check out my first TikTok. Obviously follow me on TikTok, but I think this is going places. And a couple of people have reached out, either on Twitter to say they appreciated the episode, or I had a couple people in the House of EdTech Facebook group also say that they checked it out. And shout out to Carlos Garza, Mr. G. He is starting to crush it on TikTok with the types of videos that he is putting out there. So if you're not connected with Mr. G on TikTok, make sure you do that. And also, since I just mentioned the House of EdTech Facebook group, if you're not a member, you want to go out to chrisnessie.com/Facebook, and that will get you access to the Facebook group, which I only talk about here on the podcast. I don't promote it on social media, so please don't do that either. I want people who listen to also feel that they can come and be a part of the community. So I keep it here to people who listen to the podcast. All right. So we got the EdTech Thought. We got the recommendation. I've got some great featured content. So why don't I stop yapping and let's get right into this episode's EdTech Thought. So this episode's EdTech Thought is related to our well-being and our happiness. And I came across this article over on Inc.com. That's INC.com. And the title of this article is Yale lets anyone take its most popular class ever for free, and 7 things you'll learn if you do. This article on Inc.com is written by Betsy Michael, Mikel. So I hope I said that right. I apologize to Betsy if I did not. So I just want to share this article with you right here, and it goes as follows. When psychology professor Laurie Santos opened enrollment for her happiness course at Yale, a quarter of the student body jumped at the opportunity. It became Yale's most popular course ever. Yale then adapted the class for the online platform Coursera. The Science of Well-Being is now available for anyone to take for free, and over 500,000 people have enrolled. The course provides an overview of happiness research, then guides students through practical changes they can make to improve their own everyday happiness. Santos says a lot of students come to the course with misconceptions about what happiness is and what will make them happy. Quote, "The research shows that a lot of these institutions are just dead wrong," Santos recently told the Huffington Post. She coaches students to take small steps towards happiness, all based on science. In the Huffington Post piece, Santos offers some practical advice, and she says research shows that taking the following actions have proven to increase happiness. So here's me, Chris, breaking in. I'm going to share with you these 7 things you can do that could make you happier. Number 1, strike up a conversation with a stranger. Connecting with the people around you has been proven to boost your happiness. And that doesn't mean tapping the like button on Instagram. A real face-to-face connection, even if it's brief, is the way to go. Chit-chat with a stranger, whether it's waiting in line at the grocery store or having a genuine interaction with the cashier. Number 2, meditate. Have a hard time focusing because you can't stop the chatter in your head? Santos recommends practicing meditation, which will help you calm those thoughts and stay present. Number 3, reduce decision fatigue with fewer choices. Making fewer choices equals more happiness. Most people believe that having a lot of options will make them happier. According to Santos, science says the opposite. It's mentally exhausting to have to choose from too many options. She even recommends introducing limitations on your decision-making to alleviate the burden of choosing. Number 4, do an activity for the pure joy of doing it. Setting goals is admirable, but not if you don't actually want to achieve that goal. In fact, goal setting could make you enjoy that activity less, especially if you already liked doing it just because. Try doing an activity or taking up a hobby without an end goal in mind. Fancy that. Number 5, phone a friend. Cue up Regis Philbin. Have a few free minutes? Call a friend you haven't talked to in a while. No, don't text them. Call them. Santos says this is an easy, science-backed way to boost your mood. You'll feel more connected, even if you're far away. Number 6, jot down what you're grateful for. Keep a daily happiness journal where you write down 3 things you're grateful for. Research has shown that you're likely to see the positive effects in as little as 2 weeks. And number 7, get enough sleep. You've heard it before, and Santos is going to say it again. Skimping on sleep affects your mental and physical health. Try to get sleep at the same hour every night and keep screens out of the bedroom. So there you go. 7 tips for maybe taking a step towards being happy, all 7 based on science, and a couple of these I personally employ. For example, now I don't need to share this, but I will, but I'm releasing this episode on the day that it comes out, which after I say that out loud, sounds kind of dumb. But I'm also releasing it the same day that I'm recording it because as I'm recording this, last night I was just tired and I chose going to sleep over staying up later to record the episode of this podcast. Now, if you're listening to this many months after February 9th, 2020, that doesn't matter. But just know that even I am choosing sleep, more so than ever before. And it's doing me a lot of good. So even just one thing of these 7 can certainly make a difference. And that's my EdTech Thought. Now let's get into this episode's EdTech recommendation. And today I want to talk about oodlu.org. That's OODLU.org. So what is Oodlu? Oodlu enables students to prepare for assessments by playing games. Teachers or students can create question collections, or you can select or merge any of the almost 2 million questions already created by other users. Students then practice those questions in their choice of 20 silly games on computers or on a mobile device. The OODLU approach is grounded in learning sciences research. OODLU is available in multiple languages, which currently includes Arabic, Croatian, English, French, Hebrew, Mandarin, and Slovenian. All the translations are by teachers. OODLU is a social enterprise, and they prioritize supporting students in learning as well, and maybe one day they'll make a profit. But for right now, OODLU is free. OODLU for students will always be free. Students can practice questions in their choice of games, again, on computers or mobile devices, to help them prepare for assessments. Students can create their own questions, and they can also practice what they want to practice. And students earn oodles, and these are rewards that they can redeem with their teachers. Now, what does OODLU do for you as a teacher? OODLU Standard is everything you need for your students to prepare for assessments, and that's free and always will be. OODLU Premium gives you some extra features, including whole class games, and currently that's 99 cents per month. And OODLU for Schools, which includes all of the premium features, that is $10 per teacher per year. And throughout the entire process, you as a teacher are always in control. So if you want more information about OODLU, you're going to want to go to oodlu.org and check out OODLU. And that's my recommendation. As I sat down to prepare this 150th episode, something that keeps coming to mind for me is creativity. And I'm always trying to stress that in my classroom with my students, whether it's at the high school level or at the collegiate level. I try to push the students in front of me or next to me or beside me, because there is no front of the room. I'm all over the place when I'm in the classroom. And what I always keep coming back to is encouraging people to be creative. You've heard episodes of this podcast before where I've talked about blogging, creating websites, and I'm really big into creating a podcast and trying to podcast and encouraging students to create podcasts and you to create podcasts, here a podcast, there a podcast. We need more podcasts. So creativity is important to me. Creativity is something that we can all get better at. It doesn't matter if you can draw like Picasso or Da Vinci or write music like Beyonce. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we try to do things that are creative. If I equate it to exercise and muscles, I'm not a muscle man, by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not one who is going to go to the gym and, lift things up and put things down. But I'm doing CrossFit, and part of what I do, 3 to 4 nights a week is lift weights and, bench press and deadlifts and, power snatches and, all sorts of things that I never thought I'd be into. And I'm not the strongest person there. I don't try to be the strongest person there. I just try to do the best that I can. And we can equate that to creativity. So how can we encourage maybe ourselves, or more specifically our students, to be more creative? And what are some things that we can do? So I'm going to share with you some tech tools and just some things that you can consider to have your students do. Or perhaps, you're an administrator listening to this and you want to give your teachers something to bring into their classroom to encourage more creativity with students. So the first thing I'll talk about are blogs for creative thinking. Blogs are a great way for the development of creative thinking and writing in our students. It provides the freedom for students to post whatever they want and comment and share each other's materials. Students can openly write on topics that intrigue them, and they can vent their ideas without having to worry about grading or even grammatical errors. Students can volunteer to organize and manage perhaps a common class blog, and that could act as a common source of expression for the entire class. Blogging makes students feel responsible for their own learning, and they are encouraged to incorporate creativity in their writing through them, which they could not do before. And obviously some great tools where you could have students create blogs would be EduBlogs, KidBlog, Bloggle. What is Bloggle? I don't know. Maybe I just invented a new service. Blogger, WordPress, Weebly, and even Wix. These are all great websites where you can have students write. And if you don't feel comfortable having students put their work out for the world to see or to comment, something I've done in the past is you can simply have students create a Google Doc that they can open and write in from time to time. And, it's more like a journal. Really, we want students to write. And even in my social studies classes, I don't always give them a prompt that relates to social studies. I will do free writes and I'll just have them, write down any thoughts that they might have. And sometimes I have them share that with a partner, or sometimes I have them share their entries with me. But when I do it as a journaling activity, typically they are writing for themselves. So blogging can certainly be a way to get students to think creatively and also have them work on their writing. The next thing I want to talk about is the idea of creating cartoons or comic strips and memes. Who doesn't love a good meme? Students love cartoons, comics, and memes, and we can tell this from the twinkle in their eye whenever we introduce material into our lesson plans that revolves around creating cartoons or comics. Students tend to get engaged more than ever. So why not introduce students to a set of free and friendly tools to empower them to create their own? This is a way to give them a chance to let loose on their creative powers and delve into the world of creativity without any hindrance. Let them create their own cartoons to conceptualize a topic or a popular figure or an idea in the subject that you teach. This will let them express what they think about the topic and do it in a creative way. Two tools that I recommend for this are Storyboard That and Make Beliefs Comics. There'll be links out in the show notes to this and all the other things that I mentioned at chrisnessy.com/150. But you could certainly, and I really think memes are really in right now. In my mind, creating memes, that's almost like the visual still picture version of, say, a TikTok. Because right now, I think, at least from talking with my students at Rutgers and also at the high school, TikTok, obviously it's video. We talked all about that in episode 149. And that's a way of kind of juxtaposing things that don't necessarily go together. And we heard that, when Brooke Slavic Caesar on TikTok, the student that I spoke to last episode, that's really how she is putting together audio clips and historical topics that you wouldn't think go together, but it just kind of works. So certainly creating still images in the form of memes could be very valuable and a way to stretch and strengthen the creativity that our students are trying to express. Next up, we have mind mapping and brainstorming tools. Brainstorming on topics that are to be introduced to students has now become a great collaborative way in today's teaching practices, which encourages our students to think out of the box and think creatively. Brainstorming, when done with technology, becomes much more easy and engaging. Students can conveniently do it on their own. They can use a set of easy and free tools to make fantastic mind maps and visual graphs to illustrate a topic or a concept. These tools boost their creativity and provide them with different ways to interconnect their thoughts. Some free mind mapping tools that you might want to consider using are SpiderScribe, Wise Mapping, and Creately. I'll have links to all three of those out in the show notes at chrisnessy.com/150. Now, I'm not all that familiar with mind mapping. I've done some things myself, but if you're familiar with mind mapping and have something to say, please go to chrisnessy.com/feedback and share something you've done with your students in terms of mind mapping and brainstorming. I would love to learn from you and have you able to share your story with the House of EdTech community. Next up, something that I do have some familiarity with, and that is infographics. I've made them. My students love to make them when I assign them and kind of allow them the opportunity to fit this in to what we're doing. But infographics are appreciated by a lot of teachers since they represent data and information in a colorful and catchy way. By using free tools for infographics, your students can create awesome graphs and other information sets which make the interpretation of the information easier and quicker. I tell my students all the time that, sure, infographic might seem challenging, but it's just a different way. I could easily say, write an essay about a topic, or you could represent the same ideas and concepts in a more visual way, where they can employ their creativity and their imagination to create the infographic about the topic or the concept, or really anything they want. Again, it's about the skills. It's not about whether or not they can actually compare the Industrial Revolution in Europe to the Industrial Revolution in the United States. The great thing is that they can then share their infographics and also embed them on that classroom blog or their own blog. And this also fosters creativity in our students. And two tools that I recommend that are great are Pictochart and Canva, two fantastic tools that you can use to create infographics. Next up, we're getting more into my wheelhouse of creativity, and that is video and audio for creativity. There are many easy-to-use video and tutorial creation tools that students and you can use in your teaching and your students' learning. Your students can create their own videos and share them with the class, which can be a great opportunity for them to develop their creative skills. Audio tools are equally significant. Obviously, I'm, Mr. Podcaster, and your students can create short embeddable audio clips and use them in Google Slides, or they can create podcasts and do audio storytelling. They can even simulate a discussion with others, and they can record it and share it with their friends on their blog, or you can make it bigger and, get it on the school website. Obviously, some great video making tools for students and yourself would be WeVideo, Flipgrid, iMovie, and there are so many tools out there like Screencastify that can, capture your desktop and also capture a webcam on a Chromebook or a laptop. And obviously some audio recording tools that I've talked about before could simply be the phone audio recording program on your iOS or your Android device. You could use GarageBand. You can use Audacity. There, again, search for a free tool. If you're Chromebook, use Twisted Wave. There's so much out there. And obviously, I think the bottom line when we talk about all of these ways to be creative is the idea of digital storytelling. That's the bottom line. Telling a story is a powerful way to communicate with others. That's what we as human beings have done since we learned to communicate and could communicate our ideas and our thoughts and our points of view. Storytelling improves creative skills of students. Storytelling helps them explore the meaning of their own work and their own experiences. No matter what you do, if you want students to be creative, you have to get them telling stories. A couple of the ways that I do that in my own classroom, I have my students maintaining digital portfolios. I have them but they're maintaining journals in the social studies classroom through Google Docs. I'd like to get more into using Flipgrid. I've had students create podcasts. I've got them working on a project where they're making TikTok videos. So I am always giving them options that push them beyond what I think are the mundane, standard ways of assessing learning. So promote creativity. Try something new. I mean, that's what I have been talking about for 150 episodes now, is to, use technology in your classroom. And this is just, here in episode 150, I am pleading with you, try something new. You've got, as we record this, you've got still half the school year left. Try something new. Design a new project. Take that project that you're going to do in, March or April or May and tweak it. Give it something new. Put a new seasoning on it. I beg you, try something new. And then I want you to share it. Share it on Twitter. Go to chrisnessy.com/feedback. I want to hear from you. What are you doing already? Or what are you willing to try and have your students do? And I don't care if you teach pre-K or you teach seniors in high school or you work with adults. I don't care. What are you trying? How are you promoting creativity? And hopefully we get a lot of feedback and we can maybe turn that into an entire episode of how you are sharing what you're doing, or not how you're sharing, but how you're promoting creativity in your classroom and what you're asking students to do to stretch themselves and be creative. Go to chrisnessy.com/feedback and share your story, or go to chrisnessy.com/flipgrid. And obviously you could post on the Flipgrid, which we're going to transition to now because I do have another installment of Just Give It a Try. So let's do that. I'm really excited here as we get ready to close out this episode to share this Just Give It a Try. And it's also kind of like another recommendation, but it's not coming from me. It's coming from listener Dennis Dawson. Dennis checked in via audio, not on Flipgrid, which is totally cool. But the point of this segment is every episode I end with saying, using technology isn't difficult, just give it a try. And I want to share your stories and get your voice here on the podcast to share what you've tried, whether it worked or it failed. What did you try in your classroom with your students? And what are you excited about with education technology? And Dennis jumped right on it. I shouted him out last episode being a new listener, and Dennis is fitting right in here with the House of EdTech community. So Dennis, what have you done recently?
Hi, Chris and the House of EdTech listeners. This is Dennis Dawson from Houston. And here's my suggestion for tech to try. There's an app called ZipGrade for your mobile device, both Apple and Google, and it's a very effective replacement for the old Scantron machines. They allow you to download and print for free forms from their website. They can either be 20, 50, or 100, or you can make your own custom number if you'd like. And then you use your mobile device, once you've downloaded the app, to scan the student forms where they've taken their quiz, and it gives you almost instant feedback for the score. It gives you an item analysis of everything that has gone on in the class. You can go back and review the individual images of the sheets if you want to, if a student marked something incorrectly or there's an extra bubble or something along those lines. It's just a quick, easy way to scan things and not require a Scantron machine. It's an easy piece of tech, and the first 100 scans or quizzes are free. So that's my suggestion for tech to try.
Dennis, that is awesome. I'm so glad you decided to send in the audio and share and talk about ZipGrade. I will include a link to ZipGrade out in the show notes at chrisnessy.com/150. And if you want to send in your own Just Give It a Try story, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback or chrisnessy.com/flipgrid. Thank you for checking out this episode of the House of EdTech podcast. Let's keep the conversation going. I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on the information and resources that I shared in this episode. And any episode. Whenever you listen to the episode, feel free to share the feedback. For this one, go get the show notes at chrisnessy.com/150, and you can send feedback by going to chrisnessy.com/feedback. If you enjoy the House of EdTech podcast, the most important thing you can do is when you're done listening, tell somebody else about the House of EdTech. If you share it on social media, I love seeing the tweets. I love seeing screenshots on Instagram, whatever, however you share it. Tag at House of EdTech. Use the hashtag House of EdTech. Tag me at Mr. Nessie. That would be fantastic. The other thing you could do is you could become an awesome supporter. This is where I let you know that I've got people who financially support the House of EdTech podcast. So if that's something you thought, gee, how could I support the House of EdTech in that way? Well, here's how you do it. You go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The Awesome Supporter Program is powered by Patreon, and that allows a consumer of content like you to support a creator of content like me. And those funds get put right back into the show. From domain hosting to web hosting to media hosting, it just helps to keep the show going. So I certainly welcome that support. Thank you to my awesome supporters, who include Anthony Arnaud of the New Teacher podcast at newteacher.org, Eric Kurtz from Control-Alt-Achieve, Dan Gallagher from gallaghertech.edublogs.org, Carlos Garza, my pal Mr. G from the Aced Tech podcast, find it at aced.tech. Peggy George, connect with Peggy on Twitter at pgeorge, and Jen Giffen from Shooks and Gift the podcast. Subscribe and listen at shooksandgift.com. Jeff Herb, find him on Twitter at jeffherb. Mike Messner, find him on Twitter at teachermike72. And JP Prezavento from the Bits and Bytes of Education podcast. Find more at jpprez.com. And special congratulations to JP on launching his district's new podcast, where he's at. He is now the PR guy for his district, and they launched a podcast which he is leading. Also, thank you to Kyle Wilcox at Level Up EdTech on Twitter. Again, thank you guys for your support, and if you want to become an awesome supporter, go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The next episode of the podcast will be episode 151, and that's going to come your way February 23rd, 2020. Until next time, thanks for learning with me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. Hey, I'm still here. I just want to say, if you haven't ever checked out some of the other podcasts on the Education Podcast Network, go over to edupodcastnetwork.com. Again, I play the bumpers at the beginning of the episodes, but we've got some fantastic podcasts over on the network that I started back in 2015. And hey, maybe you didn't know that I am the one who started the Education Podcast Network. So go connect with some great podcasters and go broaden your learning with even more great podcast content. I'll see you in a couple weeks.